today's video, we're going to study the most iconic lower body move in the history of golf. So this is probably the best footage that we have of what's arguably the most famous, most sought after lower body action in the history of the game. And of course, we're talking about Sam Snead and the iconic Snead Squat. And we're going to dive into that today, and we're going to take a look using a couple different visuals here and try to decide or try to determine what made up his squat with the best available information that we have. Obviously, we don't have his gears capture. It's a shame that we didn't have just the camera technology back then that we have now to get way better imagery of the legends of the game. But this is what we have. We're going to take a close look at it, and we're really going to focus on this iconic top of the backswing position all the way down to this famous Sam Snead squat. So we're going to focus in on the lower body, zoom in on it, and really pinpoint how this lower body works. And again, we're just looking at the top of the backswing down to right at left arm parallel, maybe one frame past it. It's so hard to tell with this older footage. But we're going to put two arrows here, one right at his right knee and then one right where his right hip are. And then we're going to color him in a little bit to make some of this, to put some contrast in this old black and white footage. Now we're going to color each frame differently and play this through for you so you can see all of these motions as they kind of linear fan out and stack up on one another. It's a little trippy at first when you first see this, but this is his lower body motion, and we can pause it right here. We'll see how much ground his left knee covers along with the right side, his right hip, how far it moved away from that arrow, as well as his right knee. Now, if we slow all that down, we'll get a little better image or a little better look at what he's actually doing in his famous Snead squat. So right there, the first frame, we can see the hip already pulling away as that right knee pretty much stays the same. Then the next frame, again, we can see the hip still pulling away. Now we start to see the left knee start to pull away and rotate towards the target. Right hip still staying the same. And then the next frame, again, we're going to see the hip continue to pull away. Now the left knee is really starting to pick up some momentum, and we very tiny amount of that right knee pulling away from our arrow. Next frame, now we can start to see a little right knee off that arrow point separation. Left knee still motoring on around, hips still moving forward. Okay, the same thing, the same trend. Again, we're looking at a very, very small window of time here as the downswing is really starting to ramp up speed. Now we're getting close to the famous squat position. We can see how far the hip is moved forward laterally. We can really see just that fan of shades of color there of that left knee is really rotating and swinging around. Right knee is also rotating, just not near at the same rate. Again, now we see the hip start to stabilize a bit. Right knee starting to pick up some speed now. Left knee continuing to do its thing. And then our last frame here, we can see really stabilizing now, getting ready for impact. It doesn't move a lot more laterally later than this point in the swing. Of course, the right knee is going to continue to rotate on around as the left knee really starts to stable. So a tremendous amount of rotational lateral movement with his left knee, and that left hip, left knee have really spun or really rotated to kind of almost leave the right knee behind, and it got pulled around last. But it's not a squat and then rotate. It's rotate, laterally move, that creates the squat. So it's in the reverse order. It's the rotation, it's the lateral movement early that give you this look here of this famous, iconic Sam Snead squat. So now let's take a look at what we see a lot when golfers come in for lessons and they tell us they've been trying to kind of adopt the Snead squat because, why not? One of the best players in the history of the game. Why not try to adopt some of the movements he did? And this is what we usually wind up seeing It's more of a spin around the back foot, keep that right hip in place, no lateral movement, and really just kind of a squat down with the knees. And if you've ever spent any time in the weight room, you know that's a safe way to squat. We don't want a lot of lateral movement when you're underneath a squat rack. That's not, however, the best way to play golf, and it's certainly not the way Snead did. So if we just kind of frame this through and we can compare what he actually did with how it's kind of perceived he did, you'll see the actual drastic differences of how these two motions differ. The right side of his body in this image here, it keeps moving away from the target compared to what actually happened in Snead's real swing, and that's that lateral movement, that rotation all happened right out of the top and continue to produce this coveted, this iconic Sam Snead squat. And if you want to try this, it's going to take some flexibility and it's going to take hip mobility to create the hip speed. It's not an easy move to do. If you do it like him, you can hang back and spin around and squat down. That's much more accomplishable, but it's not going to be the best thing for your golf swing. So if you want to give a Snead move a try, first just try it very slowly at first. See if it's even a possibility. We've had some great athletes come in, some really good golfers that don't even begin to approach that. That also doesn't mean they aren't very open at impact. They don't have all of those cool classic golf elements that we all want at impact. They're just not able to do what Sam Snead did. And there's a lot of golfers that fall into that category. Sam Snead was an incredible athlete, incredible flexibility, well later in life. And it's no wonder that a lot of golfers just don't possess the athletic attributes to make this move work. It's a cool move. It's one of the coolest moves in the history of the game, and it's worth studying. But just be careful trying it and try it the right way rather than trying to just manufacture the look.